part, and I was like, this is getting a little strange. Shame in my game when I was literally blushing over a ghost. I should have DNF'd it. Okay, he's redeemed for now. Hi, my name is Katelynn, and if you're new here, welcome to my little corner of the world. So today, I'm filming this a little bit late, but I figured anyway I'm getting around to it. We're gonna do a January reading wrap up. So I had 4 physical books that I read, 1 DNF, and I believe 3 books that I read on Kindle Unlimited. So let's not waste any more time and get right into them. Okay, so we're gonna start with the physical books, and the first one, we started out really strong. I read this, I think, on January 1st and then finished it like the 2nd. That was Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I rated this a 4.75 stars. There was a few moments where I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this in the beginning, but once I got in, like, it was like the halfway point, I was like, I was in, I was hooked. I loved like the relationship between all the friends. That goes with Johnny, Shannon, Claire, Lizzie, like how it all kind of, they just all depend on each other, but in the best way possible. And it was so refreshing to read about that, and how Johnny just protected Shannon, and like it was his literal life mission to protect that girl. The ending of this book, though, it ended on, like, I guess you could say a cliffhanger, and I haven't read Keeping 13 yet, and I need to pick it up. I know I do. I'm just so nervous with how Keeping 13 starts that I don't know if I can handle it. But like I said, I rated this book a 4.75 star. I honestly, and I annotated it, I probably would do a reread of this book eventually, like if I just need something that's like that I know, you know what I mean? So yeah, this was the first book that I read, and I think it started out really strong. When I read Binding 13, I kind of was in like an iffy-ish mood after. I think what I'm learning is that I'm a mood reader. So I thought, oh, like a nice, cute romance would like kind of ease the pain that Binding 13 caused. So I read Night Shift by Annie Crown, but unfortunately this book just, I don't know. Okay, the main girl character, whose name was Kendall, her big thing was that she's a reader. Love that for her. And she hates the miscommunication trope in books. However, I feel like this book was, and I am a firm believer that I love miscommunication trope. Like, I think it could be done right. I think it has been done right in a lot of books. But this one specifically, it felt done so wrong. And it was an entire book of miscommunication. And it was just incredibly frustrating for me as the reader reading it. Like, I feel like a lot of situations that happen in this book could have been avoided with literally just a simple conversation. And I didn't like that the ending of this book was just smut. I didn't like that. It felt very, I don't know, I feel like there could have been a little bit more, even just like a chapter or 2 more of just what happens after that would have been great. But I rated this, I think, a 2.5 star, maybe 2 star. I pushed through it. It was really short. It was not long at all. There was a couple things I liked about it. There were a few quotes that I was definitely like, oh, like this is really cute. But then I would get cringed out like 2 seconds later. So I probably will end up donating this book, and I feel really bad because I was looking forward to this book so much, but it just is not a hit for me. Then I had another good read, and that was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This, for me, honestly, with how anticipated I am anticipating reading The 7 Year Slip, I think I'm gonna bump this one down to like a 4.5 star, because I think The 7 Year Slip for me is gonna be a 5-star read for me, and I think Ashley Poston's gonna turn into like an auto-buy author for me, because I was not expecting to love this book as much as I did. This was about Florence and Ben. So basically, Florence worked for a publishing company. She ghost writes for a very famous author who we find out later in the book, spoiler alert, passed away. So Ben is like her new boss, who's basically looking over her writing, making sure that everything's going right. He doesn't know that she's the ghostwriter. Like, it's supposed to be this big secret that no one knows, but he knows. And so she kisses him, and some tragedy happens where her father passes away. This book explores amazing topics of grief and how it gets handled amongst a whole entire family, such as Florence, her sister, her brother, and her mother, how they just all handle it differently, but in their own ways that works for them. And so she gets to her hometown, and she hears like a knock on the door, and she opens it, and lo and behold, it's Ben, her boss, and he has this like cast around him, and he's a ghost. So this, I want to say 2/3 of the book, maybe even like up until like the last 40 pages, he's a ghost the entire book. And can I just say, I have never fallen in love with a ghost as quickly as I did with Ben. I had no shame in my game when I was literally blushing over a ghost. I didn't think it was possible, but it is. And it's this book. So I highly recommend this book. This is another one alongside Binding 13 that I would probably reread if given the chance. And that doesn't happen often with me, but I absolutely love this book. Next, I read one that I had put on my shelf, like I had bought, and I wasn't sure when I would get around to it, but I had this random urge to read it. I don't know if this happens to you guys where you're like looking at books, figuring out what you want to read next, and you pick up the most random book on your bookshelf and you end up loving it. That's what happened with In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. This was a 4-star read for me. However, it was a 4-star read, but the impact that it had on me was like a 5-star read. It follows Danny and her life. I say Danny, but it's like kind of like Danny and Bella, her best friend. Like she's always there. So like you're basically following both their lives. And Danny is a perfectionist, and she wakes up the night after getting engaged, and she finds out she's 5 years in the future and she's not engaged to the guy she just got engaged to. And it's this random guy that she has no clue who it is, and it just follows her life following the 5 years leading up to where it was. And the emotional impact that this had on me was insane. The stuff that happens, I think I said it in like one of my TikToks, it was like drama, but it wasn't drama. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like shit was happening and you were just like, in real life, like they were handling it like how real life people would handle it. And there was a death in this book that hit harder way more than it should have, because it really solidifies the fact that there is a such thing as platonic soulmates. There is romantic soulmates, and then there is platonic soulmates, and this book really solidifies that one. I cried after reading it for like 20 minutes. Like it made me sit back and think for a few minutes. I was like, wait, like what would I do if I was in Danny's shoes and I woke up 5 years in the future? I highly recommend this book. I heard a lot of people say they didn't like it, and I could see why, because I think this was marketed as a romance, and it has romance in it. Like it's about a romantic relationship like between Danny and her fiance for like most of the book, but it's I don't know, it discusses so much more than that it's way more than a romance. But I recommend it. So then I tried to dip my toe back into fantasy. I'd kind of been avoiding it for a hot minute. Like I just felt like I was like running out of love with it. So I gave Iron Flame its shot. When this book came out on November 7th, it was not a book that I was anticipating. Like I pre-ordered it and kind of forgot I did. It showed up and I was like, oh, okay, it's here. And then I didn't read it until January. I got to, I think, chapter 35, and I DNF'd it because I just felt like it was dragging on and nothing in my opinion, nothing was going on. There was a lot of dialogue, a lot of scenes that just could have been taken out and been fine without it. I think, I don't know, I don't know, if I were to finish this book, it probably would be like 3, maybe 3.5 star, and I feel like that's being generous. Will I go back to it? Maybe, just to say I read it, but I just did not enjoy the points that this book was going to. It felt like what happened in the first book towards the ending of the first book, what happened was very brushed over in the first 300 pages. Like it should have been discussed way more than it was. It was kind of like, oh, they're here and now we'll talk about them later, and then we never do. Lots of arguing, which once again I love. Like that was probably honestly my favorite part, was them arguing. And then Riddick and Andarna, who we see Riddick probably every other page just because, you know, he's, you know, basically Violet's live-in bestie. And then Andarna, we don't hear from her because she's like in hiding, I guess, like she's sleeping. So, but there's something more to that we haven't figured out. I probably never will. I don't know. I'll probably just look it up if I want to know that bad. But yeah, I DNF'd this book. This was my one DNF of January, my first DNF of 2024, which really sucks because I did have high hopes for this book. I was just really let down. So we'll see what happens when the time comes around of the third book coming out. We'll see what I do then. But I don't know. For now, it's a no-go for me. And the last of the physical books that I read was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I buddy read this with my friend Lainey, and I would rate this probably like a 4.5 star. I rated Air of Fire 4-star. It was not my favorite in the series, and actually why I stopped reading it for like 4 months. And so we got back into this one, and now we're doing the tandem read, which I haven't started, but we're not going to tell her. So everyone stay quiet. Don't go tell Lainey that I haven't started the tandem read. Anyway, so this was like a 4.5 star for me. It felt dragged on a little bit. I started loving the multiple POVs because I was kind of getting tired of some of the POVs that were happening. So I was like, okay, good. We don't have to hear from them for like another couple chapters, you know? I loved the introduction of, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but like of Lysandra kind of like coming back into Celaena's little circle, because we heard about her in, I want to say Crown of Midnight or Throne of Glass itself, or A Assassin's Blade. We meet her, and I was hooked to her from the beginning, so I was so happy to see her make her comeback in this book, and just I love her so much. I also I feel like I can't be the only one who was a little off-put by the relationship descriptions between, I think it's, did you say it, Aiden and Aelin. I cannot be the only one who was uncomfortable by how they were describing, like, I don't know, like, ooh, it made me so uncomfy. I was like, oh, I think at one point I underlined a part and I was like, this is getting a little strange. But I just looked past it because I loved Rowan. He showed up on page 233 and I was hooked. I binged the rest of the book at that point because I needed that blonde man in my life. So, like I said, I rated it 4.5 stars, and I'm hoping to start the tandem read soon, getting around to it. I just want to finish this series so bad because I want to get to the Crescent City series like now, because I feel like that's going to be my favorite series of hers. So we're getting through Throne of Glass series. Hopefully soon we'll be done with it. Okay, so then we're going to talk the books that I read on my Kindle. So the first one that I read was Savage Lover by Sophie Lark. This is the third book in the Brutal Birthright series. I rated this a 2-star. Quite frankly, the more that I think about it currently, it'd be more like a 1.5, 1-star. Like, I really pushed through that book when I should have DNF'd it. And that book is the reason that I stopped reading the Brutal Birthright series for right now. I was kind of feeling that way when I finished Stolen Heir, and then I went into Savage Lover, and I was like, okay, like Nero, like I liked him, you know, like this will be fun to learn about him. I just felt like their connection was so like, I was like, okay, they're cool, and like there was just I didn't like it, straight up. It felt very low stakes. There wasn't much going on. What did happen, it felt like it went too perfectly. Like, it felt like there was no like pull of like, oh shit, like what's gonna happen. There was nothing like that, which is what it felt like it was intending to do, and it didn't. Camille I liked on her own, and then I liked Nero on his own. I liked seeing the other couple. I believe we see Ada and Callum a couple times. Liked seeing them, but I was still like, So for now, we've put that series on pause because that book was just so bad for me. But yeah. So then the next book that I read on Kindle Unlimited was Final Offer by Lauren Asher. I would rate this one between like a 4 and a 4.25 star. I think on my TikTok I said a 4.5, but I've kind of bumped it down a little more. I liked how the series wrapped up. However, I think Terms and Conditions will still be like the superior of the 3 because the fine print, that was a mess in itself. I pretend I didn't read the fine print. I don't even want to talk about it, but Terms and Conditions will be my favorite. Final Offer, the only aspect I truly loved was Cammie and seeing her interactions with all the characters in the book, specifically Rowan, who I did not like in the fine print, but he made up for it in Final Offer. You know, letting Cammie put like a cute little princess crown on him, that had me giggling, and I was like, okay, he's redeemed for now. I'm pretty sure, 99% sure, we find out that Iris is pregnant in Final Offer, and I'm like, I was so excited. Like, that had me, I was literally, I think I teared up because I was like, we've been waiting. So I thought I'd discuss the topic of Cal's recovery and even his issues with alcoholism really well. I think it dove right into it. and explained just like that whole process and what goes through someone's mind who suffers with alcoholism. I think it really goes into explaining like how his mind worked during that entire process and just trying to figure out if he was doing certain things, like what triggered him and what didn't. And I think Alana did a great job of creating that boundary between her and Cal, because obviously she had Cammy, so it was very hard for her to figure out how those boundaries were going to work. Overall, like I said, it was not my favorite in the series, but I liked how it wrapped up, and I was just wanting to finish that series at that point. I had read Terms and Conditions, I want to say back in, oh, it was probably August, September, so it had been a hot minute since I had read that series. It was nice to see all the characters again, and sometimes it did feel I was a bit frustrated with how the book was going, but I did enjoy it, and I'm glad to say that I finished that series. I do want to read, is it Love Redesigned by her? That did interest me because we meet or we hear from the main guy character in that book, so I kind of am intrigued to see how that character is and how that book goes. So that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and in the comments let me know what you guys read in January, what you're reading in February, what you're looking forward to. And that is all I have for you guys. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I loved having you here, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!